Welcome to Donington for the final round in the 2019 Toyo Tyres Porsche Championship. And this championship battle this weekend really comes down to the wire. We've got two races, a sprint race today and tomorrow, an endurance race which is worth double the points and has a driver changeover. Now, at the front, the championship battle is between Andrew Porter in car 33, Gary Lawrence in car 3. But look who is also on the front row. It's James Coleman, returning to the championship after his epic battle last year with Adam Southgate. He's going to be interesting to watch to see what he does this weekend. And then back in the 924s, the championship is wide open. Any of the drivers can take it this weekend. It's going to be a fantastic battle. Let's see what happens in race one.
Gary Lawrence setting out his stall early with pole position. James Coleman alongside, then Andrew Porter and Nick Hull. Ed Hayes with Lee Bowden on row 3. Anthony Hutchins and Andrew Baker completing the Boxsters. The 924s headed by Pete Smith from Carl Rossin, Andy Pritchard, Chris Valentine and John Jones. Lights out for the penultimate time in 2019. Good start there from Gary Lawrence on the front row, but on the outside James Coleman has got his nose in front. Nick Hull in blue is up into third place ahead of Andrew Porter. And Nick, exploring the outside line, could well get past on the inside. He's trying to cut back in, but Andrew Porter looking for third place. And Nick Hull, I think, is going to find himself down in fourth. A good start from the 924s with Carl Rossin running in the invitation class. So a separate class, effectively, a lone runner as well, leading the 924s. And we'll keep tabs on him in that battle, but bear in mind that he is running in the invitation class with some non-standard parts on the car. Nick Hull, in fact, fifth now, and having a go is Ed Hayes. Great to see Ed coming back into the championship. So Ed immediately in front of us, Andrew Porter third, and then James Coleman and Gary Lawrence in behind. Lawrence is second in the championship to Andrew Porter, but the gap is very close between the two. It's 2.5 points separating Porter and Lawrence. There won't be any half points today because the number of starters we've got determine that it's maximum points in the races, so it'll be 25 points for the class winner in the Supersport Boxsters. And the race format this weekend, double header, effectively a triple header, because race 2 is a mini enduro, and that will afford double points because effectively it's twice the race distance. Shared cars will share the points as well, so if it's a 2-driver car, then the points will be shared between the drivers. It's a fascinating end to another great season of BRSCC Porsche racing, as Porter is about to be passed here by Ed Hayes, who goes through at Hollywood down into the Craner curves. And Ed Hayes, that's great news for Gary Lawrence, because it means that the gap goes out points-wise between himself and Andrew Porter. This could see Gary Lawrence take the championship lead. Gary drops 3 retirements, which is effectively no scores that he drops, whereas Andrew Porter is actually on 254.5 points, so drops a finish, and that's going to bite him in the bum this weekend. But anyway, we'll see how it all pans out. We've got a challenge on for the lead. Gary Lawrence looks one way, then the other. So he's looking racy from Gary Lawrence here. He'll know that the 47 car is not in the mix championship-wise. Man who finished in the second in the championship last year, James Coleman. Gary Lawrence is having a go and trying to get his nose in front. He does get his nose in front as they cross the line, but the racing line down into Redgate is held by James Coleman. So it's Coleman maintaining the lead. Gary's going to have a look in his rearview mirrors because he's got Ed Hayes right behind him as well. The important thing, though, I guess, for Gary Lawrence is going to be just to stay ahead of Andrew Porter here and then do the same thing once again in the final race of the weekend. Carl Rossin in the 41 car up ahead of Peter Smith. Peter, the championship leader in the 924s. He's only a 1.5 points ahead of Hugh Pert, who's not racing this weekend. And a little bit of a gap back to Chris Valentine in third place, but as Lloyd said in the introductions, the championship could go any way. Technically, Pete Smith leading the race because, of course, Carl Rossin's car, an invitation class car. Leaders coming down the straight, and Ed Hayes looking to try and catch up with Gary Lawrence. We've still got Andrew Porter running in 4th place. Looks like Nick Hull's lost a little bit of ground. Still trying to chip away at Ed Hayes' fastest lap, but it's not coming. He has built up a good gap, and he's some 5 seconds clear now of Ed Hayes in P2. So Coleman and Hayes, the returnees to the championship, both delivering here. It's Gary Lawrence in 3rd, and Lawrence still on to close that championship gap. Porter needs to get ahead of Lawrence, but at the moment there is a gap between the pair of them, but Porter trying everything he can to try and close in. Let's have a quick look at the fastest laps. Lawrence's best lap, a 1:20.39. Porter on his fastest lap, 1:23.7. So they're very close together, as they were in qualifying. But Porter slightly the quicker driver, as we continue to focus on James Coleman, the race leader in the 47 car. Goes across the line once again. Clock ticking down. I reckon we might have 2 more laps of this one. Ed Hayes in 2nd. Here comes the 3rd place car, and it looks to me as if Andrew Porter is starting to close in on Gary Lawrence, but is that gap going to be too much to close on over the last couple of laps? Will we get a 3rd lap out of this? I don't know. It's going to be nip and tuck on the timing screen, as John Jones is passed by those. Jones still running in 4th position in the red 639 car, 4th position in the 924 class. So Coleman out front. At the moment, I'm not seeing any improvements on any time. So the fastest laps of the race seem to be settled at the moment. Pete Smith got his on lap 12. Carl Rossin setting a fast one then as well. The conditions actually seem to be favouring faster laps from the Boxsters, from the 924s at the moment. And this, though, on board what could be a battle for 3rd place and the championship lead for sure. So Gary Lawrence out front, and it is Andrew Porter that we ride on board with, coming out of Coppice Corner, down the straight into the Fogarty S's. Gap has closed up, and you can see Gary Lawrence here. To some extent, he's going to have to look in his mirrors, and I tell you what, Gary Lawrence is possibly going to be a nervous driver here. Well, I was right, it was 2 laps to go. We're on to the last lap, and the gap has come down. Is it going to be enough, though, for the chaser? He's going to be fired up championship-wise to close down on Gary Lawrence. This is 3rd and 4th on the road, but the battle for the outright championship. And at the moment, Lawrence is going to close down to within half a point by my maths. In car again with Andrew Porter. A bit of water on the windscreen as well. That could upset the apple cart. Closes up big time through the old hairpin. Clatters the curves. No issue with track limits from any of the boys here being shown on the timing screen today. Up through Schwantz, climbing uphill. They continue the climb. If you've ever been to Donington Park, it's a good up and down place to wander around. And now closing in. Porter very definitely closing in on Gary Lawrence, and he's going to mount a challenge, I think, here. He's right with him. Now Gary Lawrence, I'm sure, is capable of holding his nerve. They go into Coppice for the last time, and it's Lawrence still there in 3rd place. Meanwhile, the checkered flag is being readied for James Coleman, who will take the win on his return to the championship. There's the checker. Coleman wins. Ed Hayes is in 2nd position. And what about the battle for the championship lead? Here it comes. Gary Lawrence is there. He's going to close down to within half a point of Andrew Porter as they crossed the line. That was a significant result, I think, for Gary Lawrence. Porter in 4th, Nick Hull still running in 5th. I think the pair of them here are going to acknowledge each other. So it was Coleman from Hayes and Lawrence in the Supersport Boxsters. Nick Hull 5th, Lee Bowden in 6th place from Andrew Baker. Non-finisher Anthony Hutchins. Fastest lap was Ed Hayes in the 924s. A win for Pete Smith from the invitation class runner Carl Rossin. 2nd in 924, Andy Pritchard from Chris Valentine and John Jones. Fastest lap, Pete Smith.
James, good to see you back in the championship, and what a way to come back with a win.
Yeah, that was a good little race, that, actually. Yeah. Qualifying was a bit manic, but we still managed to get on the front row, which was nice. Got a decent start, got in front of Gary. A few airy moments because the back end was a bit light, but no, all good. We got a little bit of a gap, backed him into Ed a bit, and they did their business, so I got a bit of a gap and just kept my laps consistent and drove away a little bit, which was nice.
And it's good to see you back at the front of the field, mixing it up a little bit. We're going to see you out there at the front tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what the weather's doing. It's just started to rain now, so we'll see what it does tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Well, we wish you all the best out there tomorrow. Congratulations once again on your victory. It's great to see you back.
That's great. Thank you.
Gary, third place. You had a tough battle out there, lots going on, but it seems like you're thinking more about the championship than taking the wins.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's a lot slippier out there this afternoon than it was in qualifying. The thing was just to come in front of Andy, which managed to do.
Peter, congratulations. A manic race out there, especially with the weather playing up. You got in just before it started to come down.
Yeah, there was only one lap where it started to drizzle a little bit, but you're kind of looking in at the sky where the clouds were. Do you lift off? Just take it steady. There was a little bit of a gap between me and Carl by then, so there was no heroics.
The cars are getting ready to go out for the second race this weekend in the Toyo Tyres Porsche Championship. And the championship battle is still on between Andrew Porter in car 33 and Gary Lawrence in car 3 starting on the front row. But this race is extra special. It's a 40-minute endurance race with a mandatory pit stop. What's going to happen? Are people going to be changing drivers, or are the solo drivers going to have to get out, get back into the car so that there's no disadvantage? It's going to be exciting. It's over to Richard John Neal to take you through all of the action.
Thanks, Lloyd. Ed Hayes and Richard Avery on pole from Gary Lawrence, then Andrew Porter and Nick Hull, Lee Bowden, Andrew Baker and Anthony Hutchins completing the Boxsters. Pete Smith on pole for the 924s from Carl Rossin, Andy Pritchard and Gary Campbell, Chris Valentine sharing with Clive Morrison, and it is John Jones and Ryan Lowry completing the grid. Name checked everybody and the lights are on and ready for our final race of the season. Out go the lights and the 40-minute mini enduro is underway for the BRSCC Toyo Tyres Porsche Championship. Great start from Ed Hayes, who leads down into turn 1. Super start from Hayes. Remember, we've got the driver change happening a little bit later on. Anthony Hutchins there at the back of the Boxsters on the inside line of Andy Baker. What a start by Ed Hayes out front. Now, you're probably wondering what's happened to James Coleman. James called away on business commitments, so sadly not taking the start. That's a pity. But nonetheless, we've got a great field and an enthralling race in prospect. Gary Lawrence running in second and coming under pressure from a hard-charging Nick Hull. So Nick Hull having a very good go. Nick's trying to get through into the second position, in car with Chris Valentine. Chris looking at the moment at the John Jones Ryan Lowry car. John starting the car. Ryan Lowry, the former owner of that machine, will be taking over for the second half of the race. And it is half points, remember, as the cars come down towards us. Gary Lawrence still in second place. Nick Hull now down behind Andrew Porter at the moment. If they finish like this, and it's a silly thing to say because we've got 38 minutes left on the clock, then it would be championship to Gary Lawrence, who's running in P2. Remember, he needs to finish ahead of Andrew Porter. But we've got a long way to go. We've got the pit stops to come. We've got loads of racing to happen as well. Certainly a great start by Ed Hayes, who will be handing over to Richard Avery. Nick Hull running on his own, man from Harrogate, looking at his fourth position at the moment, and looking at the current championship leader, Andrew Porter. I tell you what, you could not have written a closer scenario in terms of the championship points, with the fact that there's half a point between first and second in the championship, Andrew Porter and Gary Lawrence coming into the last race, and it's a double points enduro. Absolutely fantastic script. There isn't a script really, but fantastic scenario anyway to wrap up a fantastic season's racing once again. Lee Bowden coming under pressure from Anthony Hutchins, who nips down the inside line. Andy Baker, the Kent-based man from Sheppey, busy following them as we watch the championship battle here in frame, with Gary Lawrence still out front, Andrew Porter right behind. Nick Hull, I would have said in race number 1 that Gary Lawrence would have been urging Nick to get up in front of Andrew. He probably is here as well, because that would it won't necessarily affect the points, but it will make Andrew Porter's job a little bit harder if he's got another car between himself and Gary Lawrence. So Porter will be keen to stay in front and maybe close in the later stages of the race, as he did in race 1. And Gary Lawrence reporting that his tyres were overinflated, a little bit too much pressure on the tyres in race number 1, which is why he wasn't quite on the pace that he expected to have after that super qualifying performance. So there is Hull busy chasing Andrew Porter, and Gary Lawrence doing a super job at the moment. Ed Hayes disappearing off into the distance. Now one wonders whether tyre wear is going to be a factor in this race. Temperatures are not the highest, but with the Enduro, the cars have to put up with a fair amount. It's twice the normal race distance, and bear in mind that this is the racing distance that we've got over the weekend is what we normally have in terms of a triple header, but having to do 2/3 of that in one go could make a difference to the cars. As Nick Hull looks inside, now goes to the outside line and challenging Andrew Porter, having a very good look indeed. This is a super shot window for this championship, this race, because regulations are being looked at for next year, and the fact that we have normally reverse grid races, now a mini enduro. If you want to dab your toe in super sports car racing, then you can do a lot worse than looking at Toyo Tyres BRSCC Porsche Championship, which has got, as regular viewers will know, a history going back to '92, when it started as the 924 Porsche Championship won by Remy Bopp. Here we go then, back with Nick Hull, who is giving Andrew Porter something to worry about at the moment. Porter knows that he's got to try and keep in touch with the number 3 car in front of him through Schwantz into McLean's. Now again, Gary Lawrence won't be concerned about the race leader, Ed Hayes, being away and down the road, because Ed not taking any points away from Gary Lawrence's campaign. If Gary could get ahead of him, that would be fine. But I tell you what, it's a fair old pace by the leader at the moment. Lawrence, though, looking good in, I tell you what, 2nd, 3rd and 4th actually seem to be closing up. Now this is enthralling stuff here. Is Porter going to put on a move here? He's still got Nick Hull right behind him to worry about, and these 3 championship regulars all together and giving us once again a fine race in this championship as they go down towards Redgate again. And Nick Hull comes offline, has a look down the inside line but can't quite go through. But Nick Hull looking very handy here at the moment to head up into a potential podium position. Nick's trademark Union flag used to be on the roof of the car. It was the entire car at one point, now on the back, but very distinctive liveries that we've seen from the Harrogate man over the years. Okay, in car with Andrew Porter, heading uphill, still trying to chase down Gary Lawrence. Gary driving, for my money, a cool race at the moment. Soaked up pressure well in the closing stages of race number 1. A lesser driver might have been a little bit phased by having his championship rival right behind him, but he held on to it, nailed that championship lead back down, and I think he knew that it was going to come down to this race. What a fantastic end to the season. I think Porter will be a little bit aggrieved about the drop scores, having scored more points as he comes out of the slipstream, has a look. He's got Nick Hull right behind him as well. What he won't want to do is make a move and leave a passing line for Nick Hull in blue to come through. The Knaresborough man looking at the Devonian, having a good old battle now. This is a super battle for the race, for the position and the championship. And Lawrence again holds his nerve. Porter drops back a little bit there, but I don't think is going to lose anything in terms of his race rhythm and flow. Down into turn 1 again, Redgate here. Then it's into Hollywood. The big drop down through the crane occurs. One of the most spectacular pieces of racing tarmac in the UK. Ask anybody that's been here, certainly from the driver's perspective, and indeed, and having a look again, going tight into the old hairpin. Doesn't quite work. Gary Lawrence again not giving an inch there, and I've got to say, not going too defensive, Gary Lawrence, either. This is enthralling stuff from these 3. Absolutely magnificent. And Lawrence, P2 here. I guess you could show your cards too early and then just run out of steam a little bit towards the end, because 40 minutes of Porsche race, 40 minutes of racing anything is a long time to do. particularly for these guys. All these three are all racing on their own. They don't have a co-driver. Nick Hull looks to the inside again, goes to the outside sweep here. Nick Hull is thinking about getting momentum out of the chicane and down onto the Wheatcross straight and try and attack the 33 car. Nick may not be in contention for the overall championship, but he wants to get some points, maybe get up to possibly 4th position in the standings here with a decent score. He's all over the back of Porter. I think Andrew Porter wishes Nick Hull wasn't out there. That it is a fine race between these guys at the moment, edging towards the end of the first quarter of the race. We are 8 minutes into this one. It's still Ed Hayes in lead position, and Porter now goes on the offensive and goes through and takes 2nd position, and Nick Hull's going through as well to rub salt into the wound for Gary Lawrence. They're having a great battle, and well, I said Lawrence wasn't he wasn't defensive, Gary Lawrence. Now, is he doing the maths here and thinking about maybe saving the car, saving himself? I don't know, but those two, that could be a smart move. It's early in the race, and Gary Lawrence could be using a strategy of some sort here. I know he'll want to stay in front all the way, but it's now, looking at the bare mathematics of it, advantage Andrew Porter in the championship with Nick Hull right behind him. Hull looks to the inside line. Of course, the more they race each other, the more they'll take out of the cars themselves, the tyres. And as I say, we're still only a quarter of the way through the race, but it's fantastic to watch as Hull comes offline again, closing down on Peter Smith. It's John Jones in the Red Classic 924, and Nick Hull dives down the inside line and takes 2nd place. Super move by Nick Hull, read that well. He'd been threatening to do that for a number of laps, but goes through into 2nd place, in car with Andrew Porter, once again in 3rd place. Now that won't aggrieve him too much. He's still ahead of Gary Lawrence, so still in the box seat for the championship. Now they're closing up on John Jones. Jones pulls across, gives them space. We've seen some fine driving from the 924 drivers over the course of the season, because there is the performance differential. It does mean that the Supersport Boxsters will catch them over a course of a race, and they've been respectful all the way through. It's been a joy to watch those guys, and when they've been battling, they've almost put their battles on hold to allow the faster cars through and then resume. Just a quick reminder that it's Ed Hayes out front. We're not seeing a lot of Ed because, quite rightly, we've been focused on that, what was a 3-way battle, and 3 cars all in the mix here as well. This is super stuff. Now, there's a significant moment. Pit lane open here at Donington, and it means that we might see the first of the driver changes, and then we'll probably struggle to work out who's where, as you do in these mini enduro races, and we'll see who's got the plan and who will come in early. Now, will Gary Lawrence come in quickly and get it over with, and then be able to assess where he is on track once the others come out? There is Chris Valentine. Chris about to be passed by the race leader, Ed Hayes. Goes through. He's going to pass Carl Ross in now in the white and red 41 car. Then on the inside line of Andrew Pritchard as well. Great shot of that from Chris Valentine. It is Pete Smith still out front, incidentally, of course, in the 924. So Pete Smith, I think, probably did enough in race number 1 to secure the championship provisionally. But he's out here in this one as well, which is double points. Smith will move on with a win here to 211 points, as into pit lane comes John Jones. So John handing over to, that's Ryan Lowry, getting ready to get in, the former owner of the car, as I mentioned earlier on in the race. And you can see there's actually a fair amount to do. We've got to make sure the seat is exactly right for the driver getting in, and then make sure the driver, of course, is fully strapped in and ready to go. And quite rightly, they're taking their time to make sure that the job is done correctly and that they can get the 639 car back out on track, with former owner Ryan Lowry at the wheel. As down towards us comes Andy Pritchard up ahead of Carl Rossin. Chris Valentine is next up. So will John Jones lose a lap? We won't know. We won't really take stock of the exact positions until we've had all of the pit stops. But I tell you what, now look at this. Nick Hull in blue has not really got away from Andrew Porter that much. And then Gary Lawrence still there as well. Hull goes past Valentine. Porter's about to do the same thing. Chris Valentine keeping wide. Blue flags from the marshals. Always the right thing to do, but not necessarily needed, as out goes Ryan Lowry back out onto track. So Lowry in the Maluto car, as you can see on the back of the machine, back into the race. Gary Lawrence nips through on the inside line of Andrew Pritchard, and a very wild moment there for the race leader of the 924s, Pete Smith, who fires it all up, gets it into gear. He'll be grateful for the lead that he had. So Pete Smith, well, running on his own. Now, was that fatigue at this stage of the race? We are about 14 minutes into the race. A little mistake, and of course you're going to happen across traffic when you don't expect it now as well. Comes Nick Hull and Andrew Porter still fighting it out for second position. What a race these two are having. Now, if this was a normal race, the normal length, we'd be into the last quarter of it now, because we are at 14 minutes and Porter having a look to see if he can get back into P2 and grab a few more points. Remember, realistically, all he's got to do is beat Gary Lawrence, but if he can get past Nick Hull, there'll be a little bit more of a cushion. As into pit lane comes Carl Rossin in the 41 car, actually running on his own. So to simulate the driver changeover, he'll extricate himself from the car. They'll close the door, I think, and then get him back in. Realistically, he wouldn't close the door if there was another driver there, but just to make things fair, door closed, open again. Carl jumps back into the car. This isn't even a breather, is it, for the driver? So they're not even getting a rest in between, because it's all work. Back in the seat, don't have to adjust the seat. So the door close, I suppose, makes up for a little bit of that time. But great call by the organisers. Fantastic entertainment for everybody watching from the hospitality units here and the grandstand near the pits as well to see the changes. So now the question is, will these three cars come in at the same time? Nick Hull getting away from Andrew Porter, and Gary Lawrence wants the championship. He wants the position back. If he can get third, if he can get ahead of the 33 car, then he will secure the championship as we are edging towards the halfway. Lawrence is coming in. Lawrence coming into the pit lane. Still there at the moment is Carl Rossin. It's going to be a busy pit lane. Watch for Gary Lawrence coming in. There he is, back of shot. He'll get out of the car as well. I'm sort of looking past, no disrespect to Carl Rossin. I think our cameraman's going to go up and have a look at Gary Lawrence. And as you can understand, we've got a fair bit of media coverage here. Lots of journos and camera crews wanting to get in. Anthony Hutchins coming in as well. The only Boxster which he shared is the Ed Hayes Richard Avery car. So Anthony Hutchins in the number 8 will do what we saw Carl Rossin do, get himself out of the car, shut the door and then back in. Very quick stop for Gary Lawrence there as well in the number 3. Well drilled. I think Gary Lawrence has been practicing. Carl Rossin still very much in the pit lane, but gets going again now. And Gary Lawrence is out. So we've got to wait for these two cars to have their pit stops, and then we can judge where Andrew Porter is in relation to Gary Lawrence. So it's nail-biting stuff for sure in terms of the championship. In some respects, the pit stops can be a little bit of a pain for spectators because it can snuff out a battle. Now as Andrew Porter comes in, Porter into pit lane. This is crucial. Good onboard shot. Now how quick is he going to be out of pit lane? We can't see from here. The onboard, obviously, the GoPro camera is fixed, but I tell you what, he got out and back in pretty quickly here, Andrew Porter, and he'll need to, because it will be tenths of a seconds lost in the pit lane, and it's a busy pit lane now because we've got 924s coming in as well, headed by Andy Pritchard coming in. Chris Valentine is in the mix as well. Both of those cars are going to have driver changes. We'll have Gary Campbell getting into Andrew Pritchard's car. Anthony Hutchins is out. We're in car with Chris Valentine. Chris about to hand over to Clive Morrison. They'll take half the points, assuming they finish the race each for this, but it's a good first stint from Chris Valentine. Pretty much on the halfway stage of the race as well. So lots of positions to be sorted out, and it could well be decided on the pit stops, particularly for Andrew Porter and Gary Lawrence. So the Pritchard and Valentine car, and you can see that they've actually put Morrison on the back as well, which is handy for everybody to know. Clive Morrison looking to get in as well. Pete Smith had that little wobble earlier on, and this is good news here. It looks like a quicker stop with Gary Campbell going out. So Campbell's made a good stop, and I think has got out ahead of Clive Morrison now, who takes over the number 88 car. There is Ryan Lowry now in the 639 car. John Jones partnering with Ryan Lowry in this race. Anthony Hutchins, who's had his stop, is closing in and coming into the chicane, and there is Gary Lawrence in the number 3 car, who is coming down the main straight now. The question is, will Gary Lawrence, once all the pit stops have been done, be at the front of the race, or further up than he was earlier on significantly? Is he going to be ahead of Andrew Porter? So in-car graphic says Chris Valentine, but we know now the pit stop's done, of course. That is Clive Morrison. And still close between the 924s as well. Through goes Gary Lawrence. Anthony Hutchins is out front. Lawrence having a good go. Into pit lane comes Andy Baker in the 28 car. So Andy having his mandatory stop as well. Loads of extra work for the marshals to do as well. Big thank you to all that they have done. It's not just the marshals around the track, of course. The pit lane marshals have work to do as well. So Hutchins up ahead of Gary Lawrence. Anthony Hutchins, I reckon, behind, because he had a longer stop than Gary Lawrence. So I think Gary is up ahead of him. Andy Baker rejoins, and that should be 7th position for Andy Baker. Rejoining the circuit. Hutchins about to be lapped now by Gary Lawrence, who's going to go through. Lawrence has got a good run. It's been a good race from Lawrence so far. It was a quick pit stop. It didn't look too shabby, I've got to say, by Andrew Porter. But Porter is, I can confirm, behind Gary Lawrence. And the fact that we can't see Porter in the mix means that he has got potentially here the lead of the championship. So the pit stops work well for him. He's out front. Meanwhile, the pit stop's continuing, and Lloyd is with Chris Valentine.
Chris, how was your stint?
It was quite exciting, actually. I wanted to do a few more laps, and the way the driver changes went, perhaps I should have done. Had fun getting Clive's belts up. He hasn't lost as much weight as he really needed to have done.
Yeah, next time you've got to get him on a stricter diet program.
I've been telling him, but did he listen? Apparently not.
What do you think about these driver changeover races? For us watching, we love them, but as a driver, how do they feel?
Yeah, I've done endurance races before, so it's not new to me. It's so frenetic, you know. Doesn't matter how much you practice. If you're going to mess up, you're going to mess up regardless.
No, it's been brilliant. Well, Chris, hopefully we'll get a good result for you at the end.
Thank you very much. Third would be rather helpful.
Yes, definitely. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
We'll see where he goes. Thanks, Lloyd. As into pit lane now comes appropriately the race leader and provisional champion Pete Smith into pit lane. Door open. They'll try and get Pete out as quickly as they can. There he is. You see he's not mucking around. Door shut. Open again. Back in the car. I tell you what, I think a few of them have practiced their drills here. It's been superb to watch. Belts being done up. Probably does require extra marshalling here for this. So again, a big thank you. You can see Chris Valentine standing by the car there and ready to give him a push. But that was quite a quick stop, actually. This man led the championship by half a point coming into the race, and at the moment Gary Lawrence is ahead of him. They're both on the lead lap, but some distance to be made up as we watch the number 16 car. Lee Bowden still running in 6th position, and this is very much how an endurance race, this is a mini enduro being 40 minutes, very much how they pan out. You can get close racing up to the pit stop window opening up. In a way, it's extinguished some of the battles that we saw, but it's been fascinating to watch and see which drivers could get out quickest. The fastest lap at the moment is still with Ed Hayes. That was on lap 12, just before the first of the pit stops. So 1 minute 19.719. The differential actually on there. Here is Nick Hull with a little bit of smoke out the back. So is that automotive fatigue starting to bite on Nick Hull's car? Nick looking pretty good here at the moment. So Nick Hull, track position wise, having a fairly decent race of things in the 44 car, but a little bit of smoke might start to get worrying. We're now well into the last quarter of this race, the last 10 minutes of the final race of the 2019 season. It's been a fascinating year for the championship. As I mentioned in race 1, some exciting changes being made for next year to rationalise things, attract more drivers in. And that will happen to a championship over the years. As I say, this has been running in one guise or another since 1992. Through on the inside line of the race leader in the 924s, Pete Smith, goes Nick Hull. Nick closing up on Anthony Hutchins and about to try and lap him. There is Pete Smith. So into shot comes Anthony Hutchins. Nick Hull, I think for one, has probably enjoyed this race. Driver of the 44 car has had several podiums so far this season. Again, we missed him at Silverstone, but great to have him back in the championship. And Hull about to put the lap here on Anthony Hutchins. Textbook stuff here, going down into Redgate. Neat move down the inside line. Hutchins knew that that was pretty much fait accompli, and Nick now has to look at his next target, which is going to be one of the 924s, I think possibly Andy Pritchard. So down through the crane of curves into the old hairpin again. Maximum racing line there. Use a little bit of the curb, careful not to get track limits either on the inside or the outside line. And meanwhile, Gary Lawrence has closed in on, that's the race leader. Richard Avery is the race leader, so we've got a battle for the lead. So I said that and he's going to go through. Gary Lawrence challenging for the lead here. Lawrence is going to go through, and that will underline the championship challenge for Gary Lawrence, who goes through into lead position. Fantastic move, and passes Richard Avery, his old mate as well. So Richard Avery came out of the pit stops in lead position. Nick Hull's running in 3rd. And Gary Lawrence has obviously managed his car well. And how timely is that? Because we've got 5 minutes or so left on, just a shade over 5 minutes left on the clock. And Gary Lawrence, what a story. I said that the pit stops had extinguished championship battles or race battles, and to some extent it did. But then we get Gary Lawrence having a climb up and closing in on the 77 car of Richard Avery, who took over from Ed Hayes. And now Gary Lawrence, how fitting would it be for Gary Lawrence to secure the championship with a win? Clearly the car running well, but we've still got 5 minutes on the clock. He heads in the lead. I'm just thinking, actually, for the first time in the lead at this meeting. And he's, at the moment, very much overturning that half-point championship lead that Andrew Porter has. Gary will pick up 50 points for his troubles here. Andrew Porter will get currently 4th position, 38 points. So it was academic, really, points-wise, because it is about who finishes in front out of Gary Lawrence and Andrew Porter. Richard Avery trying to close in. Ed Hayes will be disappointed because he would have wanted the points as well. But Gary Lawrence actually doing something there he didn't need to do. Didn't need to go for the lead, but he did it nonetheless. He wants to sign off what could be a championship winning year with a race victory in the Enduro. And he's clear. He's on to the last lap. He's closing down on the John Jones Ryan Lowry Red 924, the 639 car, which is actually in P2. So Ryan Lowry's done a super job to get that car up to second. Chris Valentine, who was hoping for a third, is down on fourth. I reckon that John Jones will tie on points with Chris Valentine at the moment for third in the championship, which is crazy. What a season it's been, what a finale it's been, and we'll enjoy the last lap and hope for Gary Lawrence's sake that nothing goes wrong. So Gary Lawrence, the race leader, comes through McLean's for the last time. He's just got the climb up towards Coppice to negotiate. No pressure at all, even for the race lead. He's pulled away from Richard Avery in P2, so it's going to be Ed Hayes, Richard Avery second in the race, onto what was Exhibition Straight for the last time. It's not an exhibition centre anymore, but we can still call it Exhibition Straight. Nice wide line as we come down into the chicane. First part done now, second part on the gas, not too early, and look for the checkered flag. Race win and championship goes to Gary Lawrence. Takes it. Congratulations, Gary. A fine championship season, a great win to wind things up. Richard Avery second, sharing with Ed Hayes. Nick Hull will take third place, then Andrew Porter and Anthony Hutchins. Lee Bowden sixth from Andy Baker. The 924s won by Pete Smith, and congratulations to him on his win and championship title from the Jones Lowry car. Then Pritchard and Campbell. Carl Rossin 11th from Chris Valentine and Clive Morrison.
Peter, well done on your class victory. That completely wraps up now the 2019 924 championship for you. It's a good way to end the season.
It is, yeah, and you know, to win the last race, that's you know, that's what I wanted to do, really. And yeah, it was hard. It was difficult. The car was, you know, towards the end the brakes were going and the tyres were going, and yeah, it was just a case of bringing it home, really.
But you took a nice early lead, and no problems during the pit stop either, whereas some of your other competitors were having some issues during the pit stops. Right. So it was good to see you know, a nice clean pit stop, and really it looked like you were just coasting.
Yeah, actually, I just remembered that I actually went off and had a spin. I was trying fourth gear when it should have been third, and totally, yeah, I literally went through the gravel. So that would have been race over, and that wouldn't have been the way to end it. But I think I just managed to get it back on the black stuff, and yeah, from then I was a bit more cautious. But yeah, great season. Just want to say thanks to a few people. Fudge the mechanic. Tony Tyres, he's helped me a lot, and obviously my wife, awesome wife, for letting me race. So.
Are you going to be back next year to defend your title?
No, I'm not. It's time for a couple of years out, in fact. We've got a 2-year-old who's just down there, just in view there. I don't know if you want to get this little lad on here. That's my awesome wife there. Yeah, and we've got another one cooking. So yeah, that's it for now. So probably 2 years out, and then see what happens after that.
Well, we wish you all the best, and we'd like to see you back in the Porsche Championship in future. But whatever you do, we wish you all the best, and what a great way to take some time out on a high and enjoy your sabbatical.
Thank you very much.
Gary Lawrence, 2019 Toyo Tyres Porsche champion. That sounds good, doesn't it?
That's got a nice ring to it, to be fair. And to do it, I mean, it's been a fantastic year, really. I must start by thanking Richard Avery for running the car, prepping it, Country Properties and Dodden Vorton and Ambassador Rottweilers, all my supporters. Without them, I'd have still done it, but there you go. No, absolutely brilliant. And I've got to congratulate Andrew Porter, because all year long we've been racing. And we've not touched, we've raced so closely, but we've both given each other room where necessary, so it's been an absolute pleasure racing with him, even more of a pleasure beating him. So yeah, brilliant.
And 40-minute race with the pit stop, and looked like you were having a few changes to the tyre pressures, particularly at the rear during that pit stop. What was happening out there on track?
To be fair, the car was absolutely fantastic. Never having driven for 40 minutes, and certainly not that car, we didn't know what was going to happen with regards to tyres. So first 20 minutes, I mean, Ed sort of went away, but I just thought, no, I'm going to take it nice and steady. Really sort of just keep control of that car, not do anything mad, and hope that it would all come back later on. And it did. Whether that's luck or judgment, I don't know. But in the second half of the race, as soon as I came in and pitted, I just put my foot down, and the car was mint the whole way through. Brilliant.
Are we going to see you back next year defending your title?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Well, we're looking forward to that already. Congratulations. Enjoy your championship victory.
Thanks a lot. All the best.